There were two glasses on the counter. One had red lipstick smudged on the rim, strawberry lip gloss. She never wore strawberry anything. Said it made her feel like a teenager. I just stood there, keys still in my hand, staring at the glass like it was alive. The air smelled different, too. Like cologne. Not mine. Not any brand I'd ever buy. The TV was on in the living room, still playing the last episode of that show we were watching together. Only, she wasn't on the couch. And her phone was missing. Again, I walked past the wine bottle, half empty, and I swear the silence was loud. You ever feel that? That weird hum in your ears when something's wrong, but the world keeps pretending everything's fine? I went upstairs. The bedroom door was closed, but I could hear water running. Shower. She never showered in the middle of the day, especially not on a Tuesday. I knocked once. No answer. I opened the door slowly. Steam spilled out, but there was only one voice humming. Hers. She was alone. Or, at least, that's what she wanted me to believe. I waited by the dresser. My eyes scanned everything. A second pair of socks on the floor, not hers. Too big. A button from a men's shirt near the hamper. And that's when I saw it. The necklace. Silver. Not mine. Not hers. Sitting on my pillow like a signature. When she finally came out of the shower, towel around her hair, body wrapped tight in that blue robe I bought her for Christmas, she smiled like nothing happened. Like she hadn't just erased me with every step she took in that house. I didn't say anything. She leaned in to kiss me. And I said it. I'd kiss you, but I don't want to taste your boyfriend. Her whole face dropped. Like gravity forgot how to work and yanked her soul straight down. She didn't speak. Didn't blink. Just stood there with water dripping from her chin like the truth was melting off her. And for the first time in 6 years, I felt completely and stupidly alive. She opened her mouth to say something, and I saw her lips move, but no sound came out. Just a dry exhale, like all the words she'd rehearsed in the shower got jammed up in her throat the second truth hit her in the face. Her hand lifted like she wanted to reach for me, but I watched it shake. Not from the cold. From fear. Not the, oh no, I got caught fear, but the, I don't even know what version of me he sees now fear. I said nothing. I just stood there, watching her struggle to put herself back together in front of me like she was trying to reassemble a broken mirror without getting cut. Then she tried to laugh. Can you believe that? She actually let out this awkward, breathy little laugh and said, "What kind of joke is that?" A joke. She thought I was joking, or wanted me to think I was. Like I hadn't just found a man's necklace on my pillow, or a smudged lipstick glass downstairs, or smelled cologne so strong I could still taste it in my mouth. I didn't answer her. I walked to the dresser and picked up the necklace, letting it dangle between two fingers like a dead mouse. "Is this yours now too?" I asked, trying to keep my voice from cracking. Or did he forget it while marking his territory? She didn't deny it. She didn't even fake it. She just sat down slowly on the bed like her knees gave out. "And I swear to God," she said, "it's not what you think. Do they all read the same manual or something? What else am I supposed to think when the evidence is screaming louder than she ever has in our arguments?" I waited, gave her the stage, let her dig her own hole. She finally looked up at me and said, "He came by to talk." That's it. Talk. In our house. While I was gone. With wine. With lip gloss. With the shower running afterward. I nodded like I believed her. I even sat beside her, not touching her, just watching her squirm in her robe. She hated silence. Could never sit still in it. But I let it drag on, let her marinate in the consequences of every second she thought I was blind. And then, like a switch flipped, she got defensive. Snapped her head toward me and said, "You always assumed the worst of me. Maybe if you trusted me." I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. Bitter. Broken. The kind of laugh that tastes like blood in the back of your throat. "You really want to talk about trust," I said, "when I'm the one sleeping on a couch while another man's socks are in my bedroom?" That shut her up. She stood up and paced, wiping at her eyes like she could erase what just happened if she cried hard enough. And maybe part of me, some pathetic part, wanted her to say something that made it make sense. I was still looking for the version of her I married. The one who used to dance barefoot in our kitchen and snort when she laughed too hard. But she was gone. And this woman, in front of me now, was a stranger. She turned to me one last time and said, "Please don't leave." And all I could think was, "You already did." I didn't leave. Not right away. That's the part that still makes me mad at myself. She said, "Please don't leave," And instead of walking out like a man with dignity, I stood there like a confused idiot, hoping maybe, just maybe, she'd give me something real. Something that explained why the woman I loved turned into a stranger I couldn't recognize even when she was crying 2 feet in front of me. She sat on the bed, hands clenched in her robe like she was holding her own guilt shut. Her eyes were red, but not from tears. From panic. She knew what she'd done. She just didn't know how much I knew. And the not knowing was eating her alive. So I gave her a little more rope. I asked, how long has he been coming over when I'm not home? Not if. Not who is he. Just how long? She blinked, looked down, and whispered, it was a mistake. A mistake. Like burning dinner. Like forgetting to pick up the dry cleaning. Like somehow a man's cologne got into our bedroom, his socks ended up on our floor, and his necklace found a home on my pillow, by accident. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat down slowly, still holding that damn necklace. It felt warm, like it still remembered his skin. I turned it over and saw a tiny letter engraved on the back. R. One letter. But enough to light everything on fire. Whose R? I asked. Her eyes snapped up to mine. Her mouth opened. Closed. She looked like a goldfish pulled from water. You were gonna lie again, I said, chuckling bitterly. You were still gonna lie. Then she snapped. She stood, paced the room like she was the one betrayed, and yelled, you haven't touched me in weeks. You work late. You barely look at me. I don't even know if you still love me. That hit like a slap. Not because it was true, but because it was so calculated. She wasn't explaining. She was defending her affair with justifications. Like emotional distance gave her permission to bring someone else into our home. And maybe she thought I'd cry, or beg, or ask her to choose me. But I didn't. I said, you're right. I haven't touched you. I stopped trying the second I realized you started pulling away every time I got close. She froze again. I could tell she didn't expect that. That's the thing with people who cheat. They think they're the only ones hurting. They forget the other person can feel everything dying, piece by piece. You let me walk around thinking I was the problem, I said. You watched me beat myself up for your distance, your coldness, your lies. And the whole time, you were sneaking him into our bed. Her knees buckled, and she fell to the floor in front of me. Literally dropped. She reached for my hand, and I pulled it back. That shook her, more than anything else. Because I always gave in. Always forgave. Always chose peace, even when it was fake. She broke. Started crying so hard she could barely breathe. Whispering, please, please, please. Like a prayer to a God she didn't believe in until Judgment Day arrived. But I didn't comfort her. I didn't tell her I loved her. I just stared down at her, finally seeing what desperation looks like when it's cornered. And I said, start talking. Everything. Or I'm gone in the next 60 seconds. She knew I meant it. And that was the moment she started telling me about him. And trust me, it only got worse. She sat on the floor, still in that robe, still shaking. I watched her try to form the words, and for a second, I think she actually forgot how to lie. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, opened her mouth, and said it like it physically hurt. His name is Reed. Reed. That was the R on the necklace. I should have felt something. Anger, maybe. Rage. Jealousy. But I just felt numb. Like my body had decided it had already felt enough and was shutting down anything else before I completely collapsed. I nodded slow. Okay. Reed who? She looked up at me with eyes that begged me not to ask anything else. But I waited. Didn't blink. Didn't move. Just watched her suffocate under the truth. Reed Carson, she said finally. He's my boss. My mouth actually dropped open. And not just because it was her boss, but because that name, Reed Carson, I'd heard it before. She had mentioned him exactly once, months ago. She had said he was arrogant, obsessed with himself, and completely inappropriate. I remember laughing and saying something stupid like, at least the pay's good. She'd shrugged it off. Now I realized she'd been testing the water, seeing how I'd react if she ever slipped his name into a conversation. You mean the one you said creeped you out? I asked, my voice barely audible. She nodded. She couldn't even look at me anymore. Her eyes were locked on the floor like maybe if she stared hard enough, it would swallow her whole. How long? I asked. Her breathing got shallow again. 5 months, she whispered. I let that number sink in. 5 months. That meant every time she said she was working late. Every time she claimed the girls had one more wine night. Every time I sat home like a fool reheating dinner for one. He was with her. Probably in his car. Probably at some hotel. Maybe even here, in my house, sitting where I sat, touching the woman I was trying so hard to hold on to. I stood up. I couldn't sit anymore. My legs felt stiff, like they belonged to someone else. I walked to the window and stared out into the yard. The neighbor's dog barked once. The world just kept spinning like nothing had happened. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said from behind me. Her voice cracked. It started at that conference in Portland. I had too much to drink. He kissed me first. I didn't stop him, but I didn't sleep with him until weeks later. I swear. I turned around slowly. You want points for delaying the betrayal? She opened her mouth, but I raised a hand to stop her. You weren't drunk the second time, or the third, or the 10th. Don't pretend this was a one-time accident. You had a 5-month affair with a man you work for, in secret, behind my back, and you were going to keep doing it. I wasn't, she insisted. I ended it. Last week. That's why he came over yesterday. He was angry. He left that necklace on purpose. He wanted you to find it. That stopped me cold. I looked at her like I didn't even know who I was married to anymore. You broke it off with him, I repeated. And instead of calling me, or confessing, or owning your mess, you let him come here. Again, you let him into our house after ending it. Because what? You didn't want to upset him? She was crying again. Harder now. I was scared of him. I didn't know what he'd do. He said he'd tell HR I was unstable, that I pursued him. I stared at her. So you chose to protect your job instead of your marriage. She didn't answer. I walked over to the nightstand, picked up the framed photo of our wedding day. The way she looked at me in that picture, like I was the only man in the world. Now I knew that same face had been turned towards someone else in silence, in shadow, behind hotel doors and conference halls and lies. You know what hurts the most? I said, finally breaking the long, bitter silence. It's not the affair. It's that you let me love you through it. You let me be good to you while you were being cruel to me. And for the first time, she didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just lowered her head and said, I know. I think she thought that was the end of it. That her confession, her tears, would buy her some kind of grace. But it didn't. I was too far past that. I sat down on the edge of the bed and stared at her while she tried to collect the pieces of herself. She kept her head low like a student waiting for punishment, but I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just asked, calmly, quietly, the question she didn't see coming. Did you ever think about what would happen if I found out? Her face lifted, slow and stiff. She blinked like the question didn't make sense. No, she said. I didn't think you would. I thought I was being careful. That was the worst answer she could have given. Not, I regretted it every day. Not, I planned to tell you. Not even, I wanted to stop but didn't know how. Just, I thought I was being careful. Like that was the only thing keeping our marriage alive. Her ability to hide it. I stood up. I couldn't sit anymore. I didn't trust myself not to scream. She reached for me again, but I stepped back, and this time, she didn't follow. She just looked at me like she finally realized something terrifying, that I was done giving her the power to decide what happened next. I need air, I muttered. I didn't wait for her response. I grabbed my hoodie, my phone, and my keys, and walked out without even looking back. And when the door clicked shut behind me, I swear I heard her let out a sob, so sharp it sounded like it split her in two. But I didn't turn around. For once, I wanted her to be the one afraid I wouldn't come back. She thought I went for air, that I needed space, time to cool off. Maybe she even thought I'd come back with flowers like I always used to after an argument. But this wasn't a normal fight, and I wasn't the same man who used to beg her to talk things through over tea at the kitchen table. No, I didn't go for air. I went to find Reed. I didn't have a plan. I didn't even know what I'd say. I just knew I had to look him in the face. I had to see what kind of man could smile in another husband's house, drink his wine, wear his cologne, and leave his necklace on his pillow like a dog marking territory. I remembered her saying he managed the downtown office tower. She used to park there on Fridays. It was already past 7, but I drove straight there anyway. As I pulled up outside, I half expected to be turned away by security or that the building would be locked up for the night. But it wasn't. The lobby lights were still on. The desk was empty. The elevators worked. I rode up in silence, hands trembling, heart pounding, head full of every memory she'd given me and every lie she'd layered over it. When the doors opened, there was a man down the hall, alone, talking on the phone. Expensive suit, smug energy. Even from behind, I just knew. Reed, I said, and my voice didn't even sound like mine. He turned, slowly, with the kind of arrogance that only comes from a man who thinks consequences are for other people. You must be Kaylee's husband, he said with a grin that made my stomach turn. I don't know what I expected, shame, regret, maybe even a pathetic excuse, but I didn't expect that smug, polished calm. I said. You can drop the husband part. He shrugged, like he didn't care either way. She's a grown woman. She made her choices. I stepped closer. In my house. In my bed. He smirked again. She said you were soft. Guess she was right. That one sentence nearly broke me. I felt this wild heat rise in my chest, my fists clenched on instinct, but I didn't swing. I didn't give him what he wanted. Instead, I smiled. You think this is over? I asked. You really think you'll get to keep your job after this? He blinked. Excuse me. I took a slow breath. You brought wine into a subordinate's home, slept with her, pressured her into silence. And you thought I'd just take it? He scoffed, but it wasn't as confident now. You don't have proof. I pulled out my phone. Her messages. The voicemail I found by accident when I got home. The one she forgot to delete. His voice. His threats. Crystal clear. He paled. Guess what? I said. You're not the only one who knows how to be careful. Then I walked away. No yelling. No violence. Just the quiet promise that whatever came next, it would be on my terms. When I stepped back outside into the night air, it hit different. Colder. Sharper. Like something finally shifted inside me. I had come to confront a man, but I left knowing exactly what I needed to do next with her. I didn't rush home that night. I drove around for over an hour, thinking about everything. About how many nights I stayed up waiting for her to come home. About how many times I made excuses for her, blamed myself, convinced myself I wasn't good enough. But mostly, I thought about how quiet she was when I finally stopped chasing her. How scared she looked when I stopped playing the part of the doormat. When I finally pulled into the driveway, every light in the house was still on. That didn't surprise me. She was always terrified of being alone in the dark. Funny how that never stopped her from inviting another man over when I was gone. I walked inside. She was sitting at the dining table like she'd been frozen in place for hours. No food, no phone, just her. Eyes red, face hollow, looking like someone who already knew the world was about to fall apart, but still hoped for a miracle. She opened her mouth the second she saw me. Where did you go? I didn't answer. I walked past her and went straight to the bedroom. Grabbed the suitcase. Pulled it from the closet like I'd rehearsed it 100 times in my head. Because, honestly, I had. She followed me in. Please, don't do this. Please. Her voice cracked on that last word. I didn't even look at her. You begged me not to leave earlier. I didn't. I stayed. I listened. I let you talk. But now it's my turn to stop pretending this marriage is still alive. She stepped in front of the door, blocking me. Where are you going? I stared at her. Somewhere that doesn't smell like lies. She started crying again, full meltdown this time. The kind that makes you think she finally gets it. But I wasn't moved. I had seen this performance before, and I wasn't the audience anymore. I ruined everything, she whispered. I know I did, but I swear, I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I zipped the suitcase shut. That's the problem. You never meant for anything. You just did whatever felt good in the moment and hoped I'd never find out. Then I pulled out my phone. Her eyes flicked to it like it was a weapon, and it kind of was. I talked to Reed. I said coldly. I've got everything I need. Messages. The voicemail. The necklace. The timeline. All of it. She turned pale. I could actually see the blood drain from her face. I'm not suing you. I'm not blasting you online. I'm not going to ruin your life, I continued. Because you're going to do it to yourself the second this story hits your HR department. You think Reed was the only one who's vulnerable here? She started shaking. No, you can't. He said he'd deny it. I stepped closer. Good. Let him. Let him lie to a company that's already been sued twice in the past 5 years for workplace affairs. Let them investigate you both. She backed away, sat down on the edge of the bed like her knees couldn't carry her anymore. You're not like this, she whispered. You're not cruel. I looked at her for a long moment. You're right. I'm not. But I'm finally not weak either. Then I dropped my wedding ring on the nightstand. It made a quiet little tap against the wood, but it sounded louder than anything else in the room. She didn't say another word as I walked out, and I didn't turn back once. It's been 8 months since I walked out. 8 months since I stopped asking why. since I stopped hoping she'd change or that somehow I could undo what she did. I spent the first few weeks in a fog, sleeping on a buddy's couch, barely speaking to anyone, replaying everything in my head like a broken movie reel. The pain didn't leave. It just settled into something quieter, something colder. But eventually, it started to lift. I got my own place. Small, quiet, clean. I started running again, something I hadn't done since college. Joined a local gym, even made a few new friends. It felt weird at first, reclaiming pieces of myself I didn't even know I'd given up. But with every morning that I woke up without her next to me, I started breathing easier. And then, one Saturday, I saw her again. It was at the farmer's market, of all places. I was grabbing coffee, minding my own business, when I heard someone say my name. I turned, and there she was. Kaylee. Hair different, eyes tired, posture small. She looked like she had aged 5 years and 8 months. I didn't say anything at first. I just nodded. That was all I had left to give. But she stepped closer and whispered, "You look good." I thanked her, politely. No bitterness. No smile, either. Just calm. She looked down at her hands like she was waiting for something. Anything. Maybe a sign that I still missed her, still wanted her, still felt something. And then, out of nowhere, someone else joined me. Her name was Layla. We'd been dating for a few months by then. Nothing rushed, nothing dramatic. Just quiet, mutual healing. She was kind in a way I forgot existed. She made me laugh without making me feel small. Layla walked up, touched my arm gently, and smiled at Kaylee without even knowing who she was. And Kaylee? She froze. She looked between us like she suddenly realized she was staring at the version of me she never got to have, the one that finally knew his worth. I introduced them, briefly, respectfully, and then we left. No big scene, no parting words. But as we walked away, I glanced back just once. And she was still standing there, completely still, watching me disappear a second time. Only this time, she knew I wasn't coming back. And that's how it ends. Not with revenge, not with yelling, not with pain, but with peace. She lost me, and I finally found myself.